Shall we start? It's 7:03, and the intention was for this to be very informal, but we are recording because our great radio station in town, or not radio station, our TV station in town, said, hey, this is informative. There might be members of the public who are interested, so maybe they'll tune in. So hello to anyone watching. Is it channel 79? Yes, GCTV. So if you're listening in, we welcome you. I am Janet Stone McWigan. I offer you all a warm welcome tonight. I serve on the Board of Selectmen, and I will function as something of a moderator tonight. A big thank you to Greenwich Newcomers for joining forces with me and my fellow selectmen to share with you the ways in which elected officials, professional staff, and dedicated volunteers serve you. The idea for tonight's panel came into being at a Newcomers Pizza at Greenwich Point, where I found myself explaining what a selectman is, and explaining. So let me say I am very sympathetic. When I moved to Greenwich in 2006 with my young family, my husband didn't need any explanation because he had been born and raised in Greenwich. And what I have found is that, I'm from upstate New York. I didn't understand what a selectman was. I didn't know what a town meeting was. But I've found that there are many mixed marriages like mine. And so, it's not uncommon to find people who are puzzled like I was at first what our form of government is like. So what I did find, though, is that you will find a variety of families in Greenwich. Some have been here for generations. Some serendipitously found their way to Greenwich and just decided to stay for the long term. And others, they come for a few years, they enjoy our beautiful town, and then they move on to other pastures. I'm sure not as green as Greenwich. But I think when we moved here, I think I heard that something like a third of our town turns over every couple of years. So it's not unusual that there are newcomers always coming. And we welcome, we're very blessed to have such a diverse town, and it makes us that much more vibrant. Anyway, so if you are new to Greenwich, welcome. I hope that tonight's panel is helpful. And even if you're not so new, I hope you find that it's also helpful. I know that I learn something every time I participate in some kind of panel like this. So Greenwich's, let's get to, the nuts and bolts. Greenwich's form of government dates back to colonial times. You'll see similar structures in other towns in in Connecticut. There are 169 municipalities. Something like a half share our form of government. And throughout New England, you will find boards of selectmen and town meetings. And we are governed by our town charter, which when I first came into office in my head, I think I fantasized that it was a document that dated back to 1640 when the town was founded. No such luck. I'm sure there is some document that dates back to then, but what we have is actually a creation of the 1950s when our state capital, Hartford, passed legislation that enabled municipalities to take on powers of their own, and what the town charters did was to sort of formalize what those powers were and what they're not. So our town charter goes back to the 50s. It's been amended many times since then. But if you're ever curious about like what does Greenwich do, what can it do, that is the document to go back to. So let me quickly introduce who's joining me on tonight's panel.
Hi. Thank you so much, Janet, and thank you for putting this wonderful panel together for us, for Town Hall 101 for the Greenwich Newcomers and whoever else is, I guess, tuning in. So my name is Judith Schultz. I'm the current president of the Greenwich Newcomers Club. For those of you who are listening to this and are not members, because it looks like everybody here is a member, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, you're not? Okay, well, wonderful. Okay. The Greenwich Newcomers Club is a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting social opportunities throughout our wonderful town. We are celebrating our 65th year anniversary this year, and as part of the celebration, we hosted several Pizza on the Beach events over the summer at Todd's Point and Byram Park, and we will be celebrating our upcoming annual Lobster Fest on September 22nd at Todd's Point. We are grateful and honored that our first selectman, Fred Camillo, has signed a proclamation designating September 22nd as the official Greenwich Newcomers Club Day, which is very exciting. So thank you so much, Fred. We really appreciate that. The club is open to all residents of Greenwich, even in spite of the name Greenwich Newcomers Club. So I like to say, if you are new to the club, you are welcome to join. It is a great way to get involved in our community, experience all that Greenwich has to offer, meet new friends, and participate in new activities. For those new to the area, the club helps make the transition to life in Greenwich easier by providing a social calendar and offering support and advice. The club runs a number of social events and activities, including a weekly walking group, a hiking group, daytime and nighttime book clubs, lady and guys nights out, a cocktail club, coffee and lunch get-togethers, wellness events, and a Kids at Play preschool group. Most importantly, the club is about making meaningful connections. It is a place where lifelong friendships begin. And I have to say, as president, it is an honor and joy to be a part of making those connections happen. If you're interested in learning more about the club, you can email me at greenwichnewcomers@gmail.com or visit our website at greenwichnewcomersclub.wildapricot.org. Okay, thank you.
That's great, thank you. And yes, we absolutely want to acknowledge our first selectman, Fred Camillo, who's joining us for a few minutes. To my left is my fellow select woman. I go by select person, she goes by select woman, but we are all select men. That's our legal office. And next to her is Sandy Waters, who's the president of the League of Women Voters of Greenwich. To her left is Alexis Vulgaris, the moderator of the Representative Town Meeting, no acronyms tonight. And next to her is Margarita, who is the chair of our Planning and Zoning Commission. And just a brief explanation of how I came to select, and there's that word again, the Board of Selectmen select. We are not selected. Well, we are selected, sorry. We are selected. That is the origin of our name. But what I wanted to say was, it's the Board of Selectmen that is the executive body of the town, and our first selectman is the executive. It's an office with honor and responsibility. Honor because we represent the town. You're going to see us in parades, many official events, but with that also comes an obligation of being your ombudsman. So we hope that you don't have to find yourself with issues that need our help, but if you do, we are here for you. The Representative Town Meeting is the town's legislative body, and its moderator is Alexis. She will very articulately explain how the RTM works, and as Greenwich electors, which means residents who are eligible and have registered to vote, may bring petitions to the RTM. It made sense to me that she's part of tonight's panel. Margarita is, like I said, the chair of Planning and Zoning, which is an appointed body, and I dare say when I'm talking with residents, more often than not, their questions center around P&Z matters. So, and they do not come under the Board of Selectmen, which is why I asked her to join us tonight. And finally, Sandy, again, the president of the League of Women Voters, she's going to explain not who to vote for, but how voting works, because it's a little bit different with our form of government than in other towns. I did not include, because if I included every single board and organization, I thought that we would probably outnumber the number of people attending tonight. But I did not include the Board of Estimate and Taxation, not because they're not important, quite the contrary. It's argued that that board is probably the most powerful of all the elected boards, but out of interest of making the scope of tonight more manageable, I think that these are the boards and commissions that probably the public has the most interface with. I also didn't include the Board of Education. That is actually a state body, not a town body. I would encourage families with children in the public schools to join your PTA, and those PTAs, that's part of their responsibility to explain how the Board of Ed works. But that said, Alexis and I have served on the PTA Council. Both Lauren and Sandy have served on the Board of Education. Sandy is chair in her time, so certainly we can answer questions if they come up. And I don't know how much time Fred has to explain his office. If he needs to go, I know that Lauren and I can explain. But if you have time, Fred, to just explain kind of what your basic responsibilities are and what the various town departments that come under you, if you want to explain that, you're welcome to. And I'm going to, for sure, let Lauren explain how the many boards, commissions, and special committees are appointed. We have to be very appreciative that we have so many dedicated volunteers in town that help serve our government. And I'm going to mention here, I'm sure you're aware, there are a lot of volunteer and nonprofit organizations in town that make our community so vibrant. I hope in addition to Greenwich Newcomers, you have the opportunity to get to know some. But it's worth a special mention that there are many neighborhood associations that also work for you. There is one for every area of Greenwich. Some are more active than others, but if you are interested in connecting with the one that represents you, just let us know and we can help direct you. Okay, with that. Fred, do you want to make some remarks?
I'll be really quick. Sure. Thank you so much. Our board is some of the, as Janice said, some of the towns that have Board of Selectmen, some have 5, some have 3. I think some maybe have more than 5. Our 3 is very manageable, and we kind of all try to work out ways where we can all cover certain things. I know when we do, we've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people for boards, committees, and commissions, and I got to say, Lauren Rabin has been lights out, keeping us on track with that. It's not easy, and when it comes to process, Janet's always keeping us a constant reminder. If I stop and see her in the hallway and we start talking, it's great. But if I venture into an area where we're talking about business, she'll remind me that we can't talk about that because we're supposed to notice it if the Board of Selectmen meets, believe it or not. So, but the first selectman, the Board of Selectmen, the Office of First Selectman only has about 30% of the employees in town under his or her jurisdiction. So that means most of them report to independent boards and commissions like the Board of Education. What the first selectman or first selectwoman will do is they'll have about 11 departments under their control. And the 4 biggest that you really have to always remember are Parks and Recreation, Department of Public Works, DPW, and Police and Fire, which makes the first selectman the fire commissioner and the police commissioner. Where does that come into play? Grievances. If they can't come to any type of resolution, somebody's been punished, they can grieve the decision to me. And I work with Human Resources to get the background information on that. Even the Board of Education, which the first selectman has nothing to do with as far as day-to-day operations, sometimes when they can't come to a resolution, it will be grieved to the first selectman. So that's the main thing there. But again, we try to really work. I could go on for a little bit longer, but we really try to work together as a team, and I think we do that. We kind of lean on each other, which is great. Not every board does that in the States. I know sometimes they don't even talk to each other. So we're lucky that we like each other. But thank you so much for coming here. Sorry, I have to proclamation somewhere, but thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. Yes, I will. I'll just chime in. My colleagues make me my better self, for sure. But yeah, so the Board of Selectmen, what specifically are our authorities? We are the Parking and Traffic Authority. We are the Harbor Authority, which we delegate to those powers to the Harbor Management Commission. We pass ordinances. We greenlight what's called municipal improvements. So public projects that then go forward to planning and zoning. And RTM, that's right. But that's sort of the nuts and bolts. We assist, so Lauren and I specifically are charged with assisting the first selectman. As you can imagine, our Fred Camillo is ex officio on, I think, every board and commission, and he can't possibly, there's like something like 22, he can't possibly be on all of them. So we divide it up. I'm on the Old Greenwich School Building Committee, the Julian Curtis School Building Committee. I co-chair the Sustainability Committee. I'm the liaison to the Harbor Management Commission. I know that I've forgotten some other things. Lauren, what?
Oh, I'm the liaison to the Greenwich High School Security Vestibule Building Committee. We just had a ribbon cutting about 2 weeks ago. I am the Board of Selectmen liaison to the Central Middle School Building Committee. I'm the liaison to the Commission on Aging. I am the liaison to the Selectmen's Nomination Advisory Committee, which is what Fred and Janet were talking about, like the process for having volunteers come through and interview for the various boards, commissions, and committees. And then I'm also liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust Board. I think that I got it all.
Yeah. So do you want to launch then? This is a good segue to talk about the appointment.
Sure. So we have, as Fred mentioned, about 30% of the town employees are under his, management or jurisdiction. We have a very decentralized form of government, and many of the town employees or departments report to an independent board, commission, or committee. So the biggest one, for example, is the Board of Education. So the teachers report to the superintendent or their, in their principals, but the Board of Education is responsible, for the superintendent. That's, their employee. Health and Human Services, or the Health Department, or the Human Services Department, they report to their own board, and that board has management responsibilities. So the commissioners or the directors of those departments, their performance is judged by the board that they report to. And we have a process where, depending on the board, commission, or committee, the Board of Selectmen will nominate the resident, and then the RTM will appoint them. So they'll go through a multi-interview process to be put on one of these boards, commissions, or committees. In some cases, the three of us are the appointers, so we'll interview them and we'll make those decisions. And in some instances, like shellfish or conservation, it's just the first selectman that makes that decision. And we interview hundreds of residents every year, and we are so blessed in this town that we have the volunteer base, and not just the volunteer desire, but the skill sets, because a lot of these boards require very specific skill sets. People might be looking for somebody with a marketing background, or a legal background, or a building background, or finance, exactly. So it's just trying to fit the right people into the right spots. We also have something called the minority party representation, and I remember having to explain that to Margarita.
Every year. She explained it to me every year. I go, Lauren, tell me again what it means. Okay, see if I got it right.
Do you want the mic?
No, you guys can hear me, right? Okay, so
Well, but there's
state
people,
law-
there might be people.
There's a state law in Connecticut, stop me when I have it wrong. There's a state law in Connecticut that You have to, if you are the minority party in the town and there is. Stop, see?
It has nothing to do with how many people are registered. So we could have, I'm making it up, 90% unaffiliated and, 5% Democrat, 5% Republican. On a 7-member board, you can't have more than 4 people, or you can't have the 5th person from the same party. So if it was a 7-member board, it would have to be like a 4 and 3 split, or you can have, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 3 unaffiliated, or 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats, 2 unaffiliated. So that comes into play sometimes as well, where we've got talent, but they just might not be the party that we're looking for.
Okay, once a year she has to tell me.
Yes, the other thing, is the ombudsman. So as, Janet was mentioning, that is a big part of our role, is being out there in the community, being accessible and visible. We have email that we can access from multiple devices. Fred and I came into office in December of 2019, and right after that, by March of 2020, COVID hit, everything was remote. So we've done a really good job of managing our responsibilities and doing it remotely. And that's really helped this whole interview process, because it used to be people would physically come to town hall and you might have, 4 or 5 people in a row and they'd be sitting and waiting. So now we do it all via Zoom. It's very convenient, very efficient. So that was a silver lining to the pandemic, the opportunity to do things remotely.
Yeah. That's great. Anything more you want to, have we missed anything?
I would just say, just really the collaboration, between all the boards, commissions, and the committees, and, the legislative body and the executive branch, and just, the real, working for the residents and the businesses and anybody that comes to visit Greenwich. I mean, it's definitely a destination, and making sure that we remain a diverse community, that people are safe, and that we protect all of our, natural assets. We have the beaches, the parks, keep our sidewalks. They're putting all those like rubber things down, keep them safe. We've got all kinds of different ways that people want to get from one place to another. Greenwich is very big. I forget how many square miles. It's like 60.
square.
Thank you.
But 20 of them are water.
So
40 land, 20 water.
So it's hard to sometimes get around like without a car, but people are exploring alternate modes of transportation, whether that's a bicycle, walking, electric vehicles. So it's just really understanding what the needs are of the community, and I say community, not just the residents, people who work here, people who own businesses, people coming to visit. So it's just balancing all those needs and keeping up with the times, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll just add the nuts and bolts. So the Board of Selectmen meet twice a month. We meet on the 2nd and 4th Thursday at 10 o'clock. We are always in person and by Zoom. I should say we're always by Zoom, and 99% of the time in person. If you want to comment, it's very easy. You can always go to the website onto our page, and there's a place that says click here if you want to sign up to speak remotely. You can always show up as well at the meetings and sign up to speak. So
And you could also put agenda items. I mean, we do have things that we need to deal with, like ordinances or road closures, parking fees, things of that nature, but very open to anything that residents are experiencing and want to talk about it in that, public fashion and, get resolved. So somebody stopped me when I was walking in, feral cats.
yes,
So-
yes. Big topic in Old Greenwich right now. Yes.
So it spans the gamut, or whatever that expression is.
Yeah. So should we hand over to Alexis? And she'll tell us about the representatives.
I think I come last.
Welcome to Greenwich. When I first moved here 22 years ago, I was a member of the Old Greenwich, or the Newcomers Club. I went, it was at the Old Greenwich Civic Center at the time. I was pushing my toddler in this little stroller, and I met somebody who turned out to be this wonderful woman, and it turns out that she went to high school with my mother. So I actually met, like, my mom was not from here. So I actually met my mom's friend, and my mom is like, oh, did you meet him? I'm like, well, not really my age, but yes, I met, like, your friend from 1950. So I wish you luck meeting other people. It did work out for me, though. So you are super, super, super lucky in that there are 169 towns in Connecticut. There are 7 towns with a representative town meeting, and you happen to stumble upon the largest one in Connecticut and the 3rd largest legislative body in the United States. The first is the United States Congress. The second is the New Hampshire State Legislature. I happen to come from New Hampshire, so it's sort of old home week for me. And third is Greenwich, so 230 people. And you're going to say, well, what is an RTM? Because that is a normal question. Most people don't know what a representative town meeting is. So the pilgrims arrive. They very quickly decide that they will build a meeting house. And that was what was known as a town meeting, right? Anybody could come to whatever town they were living in and plead their case. Usually had to do around agriculture or something like that. And as towns and municipalities grew, they had to change the structure because in most cases, you had to have a quorum or some percentage of your residents able to participate in the meeting in order to make these important decisions. So we're humming along for several hundred years, and then in 1933, Greenwich just physically outgrew the confines of having what would be a town meeting. Basically, what would happen before you had a representative town meeting is not this building, across the way from us, which is the old town hall, had a beautiful little balcony. People would pack the meeting to support their perspective on a cause, and they would sort of force it, right? And now it looked like, oh my God, all the townspeople want X, Y, or Z, but that might not have been the case because they were just the first to arrive and they packed the seats. So in 1933, Greenwich officially changed to what's known as a representative town meeting. And what that means is you are the benefit of the people's democracy of legislation. Your town of 63,000 people now has 230 representatives from 12 districts all across town, and they represent you in the legislature, and they are helping to make decisions for you, and sometimes they are global decisions, right? Something that impacts all of us, and sometimes it might be a decision that's very important to a particular part of town, and the rest of the RTM or representative town meeting signs on for that. So there is no experience required to join this wonderful institution. It just is an interest. You don't have to be a lawyer. You don't have to have an interest in a background in politics. You don't have to have any of that. We run the gamut, and that's what makes it so special and unique. Is it is a group of 230 like-minded individuals who are interested in their community and solving problems for their community, coming together 8 times a year. We just had a meeting on Monday, and we take up whatever issues are brought forward, either from the selectmen, petitions from the general citizenry, town departments, the BET, which is not here, that's our finance board. So it's a really, really great way to get to know your community and dive into things and dig into things. Some of the things we handle are ordinances. That's a big one. You know, we pass laws. Others are the BET wants to make an appropriation for something. We say yes or no. Any gift that's given to the town, we have to approve. We approve or we review and determine if we're going to approve a majority of the people that are appointed to our various boards and commissions. And then there's some other things that are just sort of in the weeds that I won't bore you with. But it really, really is an extraordinary way to get to know your community and get involved. And I encourage you, if any of you have any interest in doing this, to, I can always help you find out what your district is. We have a few openings now, actually. One opening is in District 9, which is in Glenville. And another one is in District 3, which is Chickahominy. So, No, 5 filled theirs. Yes. We meet 8 times a year. We meet at Central Middle School, which is centrally located. And, we are incredibly lucky because many towns just don't have this unique way of engaging with your community. It's a mayor and a town council, or it's a board of selectmen, and a town meeting. And I should just say that there's still 112 municipalities in Connecticut that use a traditional town meeting, and that is basically you show up once a year, usually in May for our charter, for the state charter, because they have to pass the budget usually by, the end of the fiscal year. And you're just approving a budget, yes or no. We are far more involved than that. Some people would argue we're too involved. But it's a tremendous way to get involved, and I hope you will consider it. That's all I have to say.
I'm going to make a joke and then I'm going to say something serious. So you said like-minded. And I will say, well, we might be like, I think we were all on the RTM before coming to our office. We might be like-minded in our dedication to public service. We're not necessarily like-minded on the issues. That said, unlike the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Education, the BET, which are partisan boards but balanced boards, the RTM is nonpartisan, which I know Sandy's going to. Sandy will get into it a little bit later, but I had to make that quip that like-minded sometimes. All right, with that, we will turn to Margarita.
Shamed into using, okay. How many of you are really totally new? 1, 2. Okay, so totally new to town, less than a year? Ish, okay. And the rest of you a little longer? 5 years? Okay, all right. So this is, I was just hoping we weren't telling you things and you're thinking, oh, I already knew that. So once upon a time in the town of Euclid, Ohio, in the 1920s, a developer sued the town because the town wouldn't let him build something. And the case went all the way to the Supreme Court, and the town was upheld. Euclid was upheld. And after that, every place in the United States was allowed to control what people built, where, how tall, could you have a factory next to your house, all those things. And that's zoning, and because of Euclid, it's called Euclidean zoning. I tell this to Alexis at least 3 times a year because her dog is named Euclid, but not after what I do. Okay, so I always, every time she mentions her dog, I say, oh, Euclidean zoning. So that's what planning and zoning does. We write the regulations for Greenwich. Some of them have to be approved by Alexis's 230 politically aligned people. Was that right? No, not politically, nonpartisan, and not like-minded. So some of them do have to go to them so that the whole town weighs in, but whenever we write a rule, we also have a lot of public hearings and people come and tell us whether they like it or not. At the same time, certain kinds of proposals always come to us, to the Planning and Zoning Commission. But if you want to build a deck on your house, you go to the department that reports to us. If you want to take down a tree anywhere in the street or something like that, you go to the Parks and Recreation Department, you don't come to us, and you have to be really careful because you're not supposed to take down trees in the streets, okay? People get into trouble for that because Greenwich loves its trees. And we try very hard. In all seriousness, one of our big goals is to be sustainable, to be environmentally conscious, and to keep Greenwich green for the future, to keep us able to handle severe storm events. I won't say climate change because not everybody agrees with that, but we try to do that. So that's the basic concept of what we do. We set the rules for what people can build, and then people come to us and say, here's a project, and we say, no, that's not within the rules, or it is. And schools, for example, we look at very, very large houses. Some of the biggest things we look at are among those, but any town project. But sometimes just when someone wants to do something big to their property or change the size of their lot. Is it okay if I ask for questions? Are there any burning questions about zoning, just like what you always wanted to know?
I guess I do. We are renting, we walk around central Greenwich quite often, and we see a lot of demolition, where the historic architecture of Greenwich, one of the reasons we're interested in Greenwich, is kind of, doesn't seem to be part of the equation.
Okay, so
For instance,
that's a great
on
topic.
both sides of us, there's 2 demolition signs that just went up.
So this is a great topic. Greenwich Avenue, so the person was asking, what about the historic character of Greenwich and why am I seeing it disappearing and being demolished in central Greenwich? Greenwich Central, the Avenue, is a National Register Historic. I'm used to being on Zoom now, I'm not good with these things. So Greenwich Avenue is a National Register Historic District. It doesn't really give us teeth to protect buildings, but we do a lot to stop construction. We can't prevent it, and we do have, there's a commission on which Lauren and Alexis place people, which is the Historic District Commission, and they review every project that goes on Greenwich Avenue because we consider it our crown jewel and something we're trying to protect. But you are seeing a lot of development. The state, there's a, as you guys have read in the paper, there's a nationwide shortage of housing, and we are under a lot of pressure from the state of Connecticut to build more below-market housing. And so what you will see is development in that regard. We have approved a fair number of those projects, and you will see them because there's pressure from the state that housing has to be created. And in the end of the day, our regulatory powers are given to us by the state of Connecticut. So they dictate sort of the breadth of what we can do. Do you guys have any questions about zoning? No. Is that good? Should I stop?
You to take care of us, Margarita.
I'm sorry.
Follow-up to that, I guess.
Okay.
So maybe if it's a historic zone, you're pretty safe with the architecture that's there. These are like 2 or 3 streets over from Greenwich Avenue, say.
Yeah, it's not a historic district.
Is it do those projects all go before you?
Yes.
Okay.
All commercial goes before us.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, but these are residential.
Multifamily goes before us.
So if I wanted to discuss this further, do I reach you?
You can find my email address on the town website. Just go to planning and zoning, and you'll see that it says, I'm there, I'm the chair, and Margarita, like the drink, and just write me and say I'm a newcomer and I was there. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Margarita. I think one question people have, and I don't have a great answer, maybe you have a better answer, because not every renovation project has to come before P&Z. Some just are by right, and you can go to the building department that's under Public Works. I don't have a great answer, though, like when people say, well, what projects go to P&Z and what projects go to the building department?
So there's there's a shorthand. You know, all quick answers have, but there's this. The shorthand of it is municipal projects, schools, the skating rink, stuff like that. Commercial projects, any kind of construction that's commercial. Very large houses, which is about 15,000 square feet for a single-family residence, and multifamily houses. If you're if you're building a regular human house, you don't have to come before us. It's done administratively. Most of the stuff is, and then the other thing is, if you have a big piece of land and you want to divide it, you come to us for the division of land.
Thank you. So Sandy will go last but not least.
Okay. So my role is basically to talk a little bit about how you might intersect with all of this. And obviously, you've heard of opportunities to participate as a volunteer. You can run for the RTM. You can speak at a public meeting. If you have problems with a demolition notice, you have an opportunity to speak about that. There are plenty of opportunities to participate in many different ways. But there are some positions that are elected positions and not appointed positions, and that's really what I'm going to talk about. And the process really starts from the political party's perspective. So the candidates for elected office are generally nominated by the political parties. And just for the sake of discussion here, the landscape of distribution of political parties in Greenwich is roughly 30% Republican, 30% Democrat, and 40%, these are round numbers, unaffiliated. And unfortunately, there is no easy way for an unaffiliated voter to really compete in the elected process. So for me, that's problematic because, I think it's a good idea for anybody I'm an unaffiliated voter, for example, and it's difficult to play in the elected office game if you're not a member of a political party. So another role that one can take is to be a member of the Republican or Democratic town committee, because those bodies actually elect the candidates for office, and that's an important role. They are organized every 2 years after a municipal election. Most of you will already know that there is an election every year in Greenwich. You're never off the hook. You always have to participate, and I encourage everybody to vote every time they have the opportunity. But in odd years, so 2021, 2023, 2025, 2027, those are all municipal election years. So that's when the Board of Selectmen is elected, the Board of Estimate and Taxation is elected, Board of Education candidates are elected, and all 230 seats of the RTM are elected as well. So that's a pretty hefty bill of goods for people who are new to the community, because there are a lot of names you may not recognize. You may not, who are all those 12 people who are running in District 6, and I don't know anybody there. How in the heck do I vote? Well, I mean, that's why organizations such as ours exist. The League of Women Voters is an outgrowth of the women's right to vote that occurred in 1920. And we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. We have men members, we have women members of all ages and all sizes and types, including students. And we aim to encourage the engagement of the public in their civic life. And we promote democracy in that way. We do never advocate for a candidate for political office. We do run vote411.org, which is a National League website. You can go to that site as of October 1st this year and get the rundown on who the candidates are. So this particular year is a presidential election year. We have also on the ballot local seats that deal with the state legislature. So there are 2 candidates running for a Senate seat that represents all of Greenwich and even part of Stamford. And there are 3 state districts, 149, 150, and 151, and which one you're in depends on where you live in town. They all have both Republican and Democratic candidates running for those seats, so you want to know who's who and what do they think about the various issues. I'd like to point to another difficulty in working in a municipal election, which is that our Board of Estimate and Taxation is arguably the most powerful board in Greenwich. And there are 12 people who serve on it. Each party nominates 6 people. And the chairman of the board has a tie-breaking vote. And no voter has anything at all to say about any of those people. But what you do have to control is which party controls the Board of Estimate. So I've seen people cherry pick. I know this guy here, and I know this guy here, and I know this lady, and this one. And that's not how you vote for the Board of Estimate. You vote for the party that represents the values that you want to see implemented on that board. So some people are, really interested in keeping the tax rate low. Some people are interested more in, building projects or school projects or, school issues or whatever. And they may meet, one party may speak more to your interest than another. So that's one board that's very important that you know how to vote for. The Board of Education is different. It has 4 Democrats and 4 Republicans. They kind of vary in the election year. 2 from each party run every 2 years. And the chairman of that board does not have a tie-breaking vote. So to pass anything on the Board of Education, you need 5 votes, which means it has to be a bipartisan decision. So, and if the 8 members of that board cannot agree on who should be the chairman, it goes to the selectman's office for their decision. And that generally lends a political cast to the discussion some way or another. Anyway, in order to participate in voting, you have to be registered. Everybody needs to be registered to vote. Yesterday was National Voter Registration Day. Every day until the election is voter registration day. Make sure that if you're not registered, you do get registered to vote. This year, you may vote early. You can vote starting on October 21st through November 4th, early in Town Hall, in person. You may also vote absentee ballot if you have an excuse. That is, if you're sick, if you're not going to be in town, you're working at the polls, you're a military person, you can get an absentee ballot legally in the state of Connecticut. That's a little, what I say, but many more states in the country have no excuse absentee voting than we do here in Connecticut. And that item is actually on the ballot this year, and the league supports no excuse absentee voting and we urge you to support that. Let's see, anything else I need to say? Absentee voting, let's say I got through the whole thing, I think. Yeah, so and we will have a debate for the candidates for, political office, the state Senate and state House on October 15th. It'll be in this room, and encourage you to come. It'll be also covered by GCTV, so if you can't make it, you can watch it on Zoom as well, or on YouTube, I guess.
Since you were explaining how people are elected, I thought I would explain how we're elected. So the first selectman is running against another candidate. So they're running for the office of first selectman. And then the selectmen are running for the office of selectman. We're running against each other. So Janet and I were actually running against each other twice. But what happens is it's really about who's getting the most votes. So the person that ran against Fred got less votes in 2023 and in 2021 than Janet. So because Janet, even though she got less votes than me, she got more votes than the person who was running against Fred, and that's how she became the third selectman.
It's very idiosyncratic, and it's hard to explain to people that I didn't necessarily win my office, I just didn't lose. But that said, the easy way to explain it is 4 people are running, the 3 with the most votes win, but only a first selectman candidate can become the first selectman. That's the easy explanation, which is not that easy. Sandy, I just had one question about early voting. I thought actually that early voting ended, you could vote on Sunday, November 3rd, but that Monday the 4th was off for the registrars, to give the registrars a day off, and then oh. Okay. All right.
So that was beginning October 20, I'll hand this out to you so that you. We have a flyer, both in, if there's anybody who's Spanish speaking, we have it in Spanish as well. Here, can I pass this to you? You can pass around the room. These are Hispanic ones, yeah, right. So you can see that some of the explanation of what I said about absentee voting and so on, what the excuses are. I'll hand some more to this other side, but there you go.
I was going to say I could.
Okay, there you go. Thanks. I don't think I have anything else to say. I mean, any questions? Anybody have any questions about voting? Sounds like the group is pretty experienced. You can vote at Town Hall. Oh, early voting is in person. No excuse absentee voting is a ballot that you can mail in, or you can put in a ballot box. They're different concepts. So.
What I worry about, you've got that voting box outside, and last time there was a national election, there were people running off with those voter boxes. Is that one in concrete?
I don't.
It's got a camera. It's got a camera on it.
Just as an interesting
There's
concept.
also one inside the police station.
Yes, there's one in the police station. You can vote down there.
Inside the police station is a ballot box. Inside Town Hall is a ballot box. There's only one outside of Town Hall in the parking lot, and that's got a security camera on it.
Right. Just as another aside, there are 2 registrars of voters, a Republican and a Democrat, and that's an elected position. The 2 that are there now are, superb. They do a good job, and they've been doing it for years. And they advocate for as many they want to get as many people voting as possible. We expect close to 100% voting in a presidential election year. And here's the bad news. It can be as low as 40% in a municipal election year. So if you think about it, that means 21% of the population can elect the members who are making the financial decisions for the town. That's really a scary thought. I mean, really, everybody should be voting in the municipal elections because those affect us the most, right? It's our schools, school policies, how much we're going to spend on what are our capital projects that we want to take on and so on. Those are all very important to us, so. Yes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I heard that they count the ballots after Election Day, the absentee ballots. Why don't they count them before?
They count them the day of.
Oh, the day of. Okay, that makes me feel better.
My mother was a poll worker.
Yeah. But that's another potential goal, is to be a poll worker. You can go work at the polls. I've done it. It's a long day, but you sure get a good sense of how things are run.
So I just have a question. Are there term limits for the, no?
And I was almost going to say that. There's no term limits.
For any of these, okay, interesting, okay.
Any other questions?
I had a question. You mentioned that there were 200 and, I forget, 230, and there's how many districts in Greenwich? 12. So is there a map that shows which district we're in? And then does each address have one representative, or you have all the representatives in your district? Okay.
District, so in theory, I think we each represent about 300 people or something like that. So I'm in District 6, which is Old Greenwich. There are 21.
They can't hear you on TV.
Sorry. Yeah. So that's a great question. There are 12 districts throughout town. The smallest is Chickahominy, which is 10 members, might be 11 now. What? I'm sorry, District 3. And then the largest district is Coscob, which has 26 members. And then, so it's anywhere between 11 and 26. And if I represent District 6, which has 21 members, so in theory, the 21 of us each represent like 300 voters in there. It's based on the number of representatives per district. It's always fixed at 230, but it can go up and down based on the number of voters in that district. So we gained a seat at the last municipal election. We were 20, we went to 21, which meant somebody lost a seat, and I don't remember which district lost a seat. Did you have another question? Yeah.
Is it the number of voters or the number of residents?
The number of voters, not the number of residents. You have to be a registered voter there, yeah.
Is it the census that determines the size of?
Not the census, it's the registrar of voters. Will produce a list in July prior to the municipal election, maybe June, and we'll say these are the number of registered voters there, and this is based on a formula system, how many representatives you'll have.
The district doesn't change, like the street.
The boundaries of the district don't change.
That never
Yeah.
changes, it's just the number of people that vote that are in those boundaries. But
Yeah.
the boundaries remain the same.
Yeah,
And Greenwich has some very, very high percentage of registered voters, right?
Yep.
yeah.
Like some, I want to say something like 98% of eligible voters are registered.
I think it's about, 45,000.
So you may have said this already. So the way the RTM works, I, as a citizen, resident of Greenwich, one of the pathways to information and decision-making is through my RTM rep? Is that it? So find out, yeah.
Central Business District? Sorry. I'm not 100% sure where you are, but if you're like Mason, Millbank, Connecticut Avenue, you're in District 1?
Easttown.
You're on District 1. You have Frederick Lee as your chair. They're a very involved group. And if you are concerned about, I don't know, something in that district, you can reach out to your district chair, and you are welcome to go to their meetings. If district and committee meetings are always open to the public, we encourage people to go.
I got something to say that.
Okay, and you can reach out to him and express your concern.
I think, one issue is, how do you know what's going on in town, right? That's actually the issue. To know what's being discussed at an RTM meeting is a key item. So I would just say that if you haven't discovered the Greenwich Free Press, you ought to read that on a regular basis, because that's one source. The Greenwich Time is another, and the Greenwich Sentinel. Those three. And that's how you find out what's going on. And the letters to the editor are very instructive.
I would also say that if you're part of a condo association or the central business district, so District 1 has a lot of multifamily housing, right? So quite a few of the members in District 1 live in some of the larger apartment buildings, sort of, is it Lewis or East Elm? And they're very involved. So building in that part of town has been an issue that district has taken up. With traffic on Greenwich Avenue and something called bump outs is an issue that they've taken up. So there's lots of opportunity in your little nest to find, go ahead, you can take it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, they gotta hear you. So one of the things we're telling you is that the town website is a great resource. So you go to Town of Greenwich, you go to .gov now, and you search in the site for the thing you want. My district map, and I've done it. District map, up come the RTM district maps. Just put District 1, and you will get who are the members. And if you have trouble finding the email addresses, you can reach out. You already know how to find us, but you can just reach out and ask us. I want to write Fred Lee, and I can't find the address. But it is full of great stuff, the town website. It's surprisingly helpful, I find.
Yeah, the search capability is really strong.
Yeah, it is.
So I was going to add a couple of things. One is the Office of the First Selectman sends out an email every Friday. I'm going to guess that most of you already get it. If you don't have it, though, like you should sign up because that is very informative. But what this is getting at, which, when we're talking about the town calendar, you can find the meetings, is the Freedom of Information Act, which Fred alluded to at the beginning. This is the law that people often call the Sunshine Law. It requires transparency in government, so that it's why Lauren and I can talk about shoes, but we can't talk about, tonight at least, we can't talk about feral cats. She could talk, well, Alexis and I could talk about feral cats, but together, Lauren and I constitute a quorum of the Board of Selectmen. So it's funny to me, but I get it, that people will come up to me and say, well, have you, the three of you, made a decision about, you name it, X, Y, or Z? And I'll say, I just have to repeat, we can't talk about these matters except at publicly posted meetings. Those are our regular meetings, the second and fourth Thursday of the month. But in accordance with that law, our town calendar posts all of these meetings are public. So you are very much welcome, but the law also, it protects your right to attend these public meetings. Anything else?
Does each district have its own meeting?
Yes.
And how do you find out when that is? And then, since I got the mic, why are there this many chairs there in this room?
So all right, I like all these questions. So first of all, hang on. This is the town hall meeting room, and this is where the Board of Estimate and Taxation usually meets, and there should be 12 chairs behind me. I don't know if they've snuck an extra one in. They're fixed microphones up there, and they sit the chair, and then they fan out by party, and I don't remember if they have to sit in so this is their little,
We sit there too in our meetings.
but this is like where the powerful board sits of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. And we wanted to make it more informal by not having us up there and you up there. And then, the microphones are fixed. So that's who's usually in here. I have a question. Where do you live?
We're in Greenwich off Stanwich.
Greenwich off Sandwich. Okay. So you could be in 7.
It could be Costco too. Yeah.
Or you could be Costco. So I don't know where you are. That hasn't helped me. But if all the district meetings are listed, all the committee meetings are listed, it's easy to find on the RTM's website. There is a colored map up there, and so if you sort of know your address, you can just look on it. They're all open, public. You can, if you have a particular issue, so if you are in District 8, which would be Lower Stanwich. So if you're not north of, if you're not going north of Central Middle School, you'd be District 8. And then if you are going north of that, you're probably in District 10. 11, I'm sorry, 11, yeah. Yeah, you'll find out.
It's a funny.
It's not always, it's not like a grid system, they can be a little windy and things like that.
If you're on the west side of Stanwich Road, on the west side, then you're probably in District 7. 7,
How far north they are.
near the Greenwich High School. If you're near Greenwich High School, you're in District 7.
Everybody has their own thing to look up.
Yeah, you all need to look it up, yeah.
How often does a district meet?
The district meets, the full RTM meets 8 times a year, so their district and committee meetings 8 times a year. And it's always the week before the full RTM meeting. So our next full RTM meeting is like October, it's 23rd or something like that. I've forgotten, which means the district and committee meetings will be the week before that. And you are welcome to go and meet your elected representatives who have hopefully your interest at heart in as a newcomer to the community.
If you go into, once again, the town website, if you go into it, you see, you click on the homepage and you'll see at the very bottom, in the homepage, it has town calendar. And you click on calendar and it shows you every meeting that is taking place during the month, and if you click on the meeting, when there's not a glitch, it'll tell you where the meeting is. I had a little bit of trouble this week, but otherwise, and you'll see exactly where it is.
So if you were in District 8, again, we're speculating where you could be. Stanwich is a big road, but if you're in District 8, you meet in the Coscob School. I believe it's their media center, their cafeteria, so, Coscob's right off of the Post Road. If you are in District 11, they have a very nice meeting room at Greenwich Country Day School that they've been using. So we always try and have centrally located meeting locations. Most often, they're in a school. Quite a few of the districts meet in town hall. Others meet in libraries or private or public schools, things like that. So if you give us your address, we will find you your meeting location.
It's easy to find out what district you're in. Just call the register of voters. Ask them. Call 622, the number here.
So easy to
Ask for a register of voters. Then you give them your address. They'll tell you what district you're on.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can you ping the RTM rep on topics?
You can. There's, so we have a website, and it's, RTM, if you just type in RTM, if you go to the greenwichct.gov and you put in RTM, it'll pop up. If you're looking at the webpage, it has lots of information there. I don't want to overwhelm you. But on the right-hand side, there's a little thing that says contact all 230. And it's basically a form, and you are welcome to share whatever your thoughts or concerns are with all 230 members. So we get those throughout the month. We get responses from people.
I wasn't concerned, but now I'm concerned about feral cats.
Yeah.
That is a joke.
No, it's sadly not a joke. I mean,
No, it's not a joke.
it's,
No. We can't discuss it,
Well,
though.
what is a joke is that if you use that button to advertise a tag sale, Alexis will come after you.
yeah, so
Yes.
our little contact all is for business only. It's not for advertising a tag sale. I'm selling my home. Would you like to get in, on the ground floor without a broker sort of thing? I will shut you down. I'm being very nice tonight. I'm usually not this nice, I can assure you.
Can you just contact the members of your own district? Just your own district?
We do have that option as well. If that's in different location. On the left-hand side, it'll say members, and you can contact by district or committee. So that is an option as well.
But it's not a group email. Like, what you can do is you can email the chair of your district, right? You, okay. It's a group. Oh, does it? Okay.
What I wanted to add, finally, is that most of these elected positions are unpaid. The person who gets paid is the first selectman, so Fred. That is a full-time position, considered a full-time position. Our positions are considered part-time. We earn 1/10 of the first selectman's salary.
And then with that money, they pay to go to any number of events all throughout town. I can assure you, I've seen them at any number of places, so great on you guys.
I will also say that a .1 full-time equivalent means the expectation is that we put in 4 hours a week. I assure you, we're not putting in 4 hours a week. But to your point, I mean, we really owe a debt of appreciation to all the volunteers, and that includes all of the elected officials who are not paid. You know, the BET is not paid, the BOE is not paid, RTM is not paid. There are a few other, I mean, the registrar of voters are paid, the town clerk and the tax collector are paid. The constables get something for their services, but that's really it.
How do you coordinate all these boards and commissions if necessary to improve something, to provide a new service, whatever it might be, if it's not falling in only one responsibility?
Do you want to take that in turn? So all of the boards and commissions, they have, generally speaking, enabling legislation. So their responsibilities and powers are spelled out. And in some cases, they don't have the wherewithal to change those. I don't know if that answers what your question is getting at, but.
I meant if you want to provide a new service or improve an existing service, and it requires several boards, commissions to agree, to coordinate. How is that the executive doing that?
So there is a process, and it's generally speaking, depending on the thing that is being approved, it's a known process. So, like in a legal settlement, in which we discuss, that's the other thing, we make decisions on behalf of the town. These are all done in executive session, but there is a process, and so the lawyer for the town will come to the Board of Selectmen and review the case, and we'll make a decision, and then it will go to, often it's the BET's legal committee as well, and then it depends on what that the particular case is, but there's usually a process, and it's understood who the various boards and commissions are that need to play a role.
But also, I think, we'll make modifications, like you're asking, like services to provide, I'll make it simple, like people want more pickleball courts. So, they went to the Parks and Rec Board, they went to Parks and Rec, they went to the RTM, they came to the Board of Selectmen. So, people that want some service or something that's not being offered, they'll advocate for it. And then, depending on what it is, then we have to put it in the budget to pay for, more pickleball courts, or, making it simple, because I think that's like a fun thing, but they're not always fun things.
Anything to ask?
Thank you for all that you're telling us here. It's been extremely informative, and appreciate your service for 1/10 of the pay. The question I have, it's learning a lot. I'm surprised that it's Republican, Democratic. Has there ever been an issue with a third party saying, what about us? How do we get allocated for a number of slots like the Republicans and Democrats do?
Well, Oh, there is a third party, the independent party. I mean, often unaffiliated voters will call themselves independents, not realizing there is actually a formal independent party, but it's very small.
The voter list has many parties, okay? There's a Libertarian Party, there is a Green Party, there is an independent party, which is not the same. The Working Family, yeah. And then, but the numbers in those are much smaller. And the real issue is that 39% of people who are unaffiliated, so they're not connected with anything. And actually, I think it's very difficult for those folks to get any kind of a seat in any government. And I actually think that's a big problem. But, the Board of Education is a party by state law, is a party-nominated position, and a town charter drives the composition of some of the town boards. And so if you're not a member of a party, you can't participate in closed primaries. That's another thing. If you're an unaffiliated voter, you can't participate in a primary in the state of Connecticut. Other states have open primaries. Minnesota, I think, is one of them. And so it really, if you're an unaffiliated voter, you just basically deal with the November election because really, and I think that's a problem, increasingly as people don't want to align with either party.
Other questions? Have we exhausted you?
Yes.
There you go. Well, thank you all for coming. This was fun and fantastic. Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Let's make this a habit, let's make this an annual thing.